up here first. The rest of them, we're in a little bit of a time crunch, so I won't be able to stop at every plot along the way. I'll introduce myself. I'm Steve Paisley. I'm out of breath because I ran the kitchen front trailer. I'm the State Extension Beef Specialist. I'm located here at SAREC. I live about 20 miles north of Wheatland. And so I'm one of the faculty member here. I'm your tour guide today, which may or not be good, but I'm more than happy to do it. I'm always a tour guide, so at least I'm used to doing it. I'll talk a little bit about this. We do have a poster that describes our growth safe system. This is our ability to measure individual bull intake and individual bull efficiency and RFI here. So we've got a set of bulls on test. We do a test every fall, every winter for any consigners in the area that want to participate. But we measure feed efficiency, feed intake, and RFI. Just to point out, this is a set of bulls from Ryan Nyman 77 Ranch in Hewlett, Wyoming. These are all of his yearling bulls. They sell 2-year-old bulls there, and so we're feed efficiency testing his entire bull battery this summer. So we have all of his bulls here. We're measuring individual feed intake, individual feed efficiencies. They're on a diet that is about 50% wheat straw, about 50% soy hull pellets. A diet intended to be almost starch-free because these are forage-based, forage-grown bulls. And we're going to measure feed intake, we're going to measure their gain, and rank them as far as feed efficiency and RFI. And we probably don't have a lot of more time to talk about this while we're here, but grab me during supper if you've got any questions about it. They've been a really great set of bulls to test, just incredibly calm. And for as big as they are, they all seem to get along pretty well. So it's been a pretty good test so far. So again, I'm not supposed to hog all the time. I'm the animal scientist, so I'd love to spend 20 minutes talking about these guys. But we'll move on to the rest of the plots. And again, if you have any questions, I'll visit with you later.
No, I'm good. Thanks. You're okay? No.
So as we go along here, if you look over to our west, and this cornfield, again, that's where the current hail study is being conducted. So as Dr. Eberly talked about earlier about our cover crop project last winter, all of that acreage was planted back to corn, and that's what you see over here to the west, to our left. So that project continues on. We're going to measure yield off of that, as well as continue to soil sample and take some information off of that. I've got quite a bit of information on the forage that we produced last winter. We had rye, triticale, and wheat planted in there. Just in general terms, we got a little more forage production out of our rye and our triticale, as you would expect, but we're all very similar in nutrition as far as nutrient quality. All a very high protein, high energy type of a feed. We used it and fed our replacement heifers as we went. All right, some of these will be coming back on. We're going to weave back and forth in and out of these projects as we come back. So I'll try and I'll point out as we go by them, and hopefully we can get all of this explained as we go through here. All right, so if you've got one of the little one-page front and back sheet, we're kind of working off of that. We've talked about the Grow Safe, the hail project, which was number 2. We're coming up on number 3 up here. And it'll be marked as we drive by it. That's a forage sorghum study by Anwar, Dr. Islam. That project has 2 parts. It's actually looking at about 43 different varieties of forage sorghum, both in an irrigated as well as a dry land scenario. So if you look over here to your right, you'll see all of the multiple different varieties of forage sorghum. This will be our irrigated plots right here. So this again, our irrigated forage sorghum variety trial right here with Dr. Islam. All right, as we come up here, so that's number 3. Number 4, you can see we're looking at 23 different dry bean varieties or different dry bean genotypes under some different stress conditions. That's number 4 here. That's Dr. Heitholt, department head from Plant Sciences, as well as others working on some dry bean variety studies here on plot 4. Right? Right. Yeah. Part of the stress tolerance includes dust and driving. Right. Exactly. As you know, we've gone. So we're finally back doing some dry bean research. Jack Cecil for a number of years did a lot of our dry bean research, and fortunately, Dr. Heitholt has kind of taken that over and again and doing some of our dry bean research here at SAREC as well. So that's been great. All right, as we come out the other side over on our left or on the east, we'll have a number 5 showing up. And this is looking at some bird's foot trefoil with Sarkar and Dr. Islam looking at, again, another legume option. Bird's foot trefoil, another legume that we can look at maybe as an option rather than alfalfa as a potential forage resource for us. Mainly because of its non-bloating properties, it's a little safer from a livestock standpoint. So that's number 5.
How do you?
It also has some
harvest
fenugreek
quinoa?
in there, again, another potential legume that we can use in that situation. All right, now we're looking for, so we're going to follow this down to the end here. Again, we're not able to, so we're looking at some of the fenugreek. We're not able to report on all of these projects. Again, at any one time, we've got about 65 to 70 different research projects going on site all the time. And again, a lot of little separate field days and different things going on. In accordance to these, you can see some of these were winter wheat studies, some spring barley studies that have already been harvested. Some of those types of things, but again, quite a few research plots that we won't talk about. You might be familiar, we've got a lateral move pivot that goes across here. We have the ability, it's got a variable rate computerized system programmed into it. So for all of these little individual blocks, we can program in exactly how much water is applied to each of these little blocks. So every one of these different research projects has a different irrigation need. And as the pivot moves down across there, it applies a variable amount of moisture on each of those plots based on the prescription from the researcher. So as we go across here, in the checkerboard, there's quite a few different rates applied. So as we come up on the number 6, you can see the sign right here. This is a root and crown rot disease study with sugar beets, as well as looking at fungicides and fungicide applications. This is with Dr. Bill Stump and Matt Lopez, who's sitting next to me. So, as well as some herbicides. So again, some different sugar beet management options as far as soil-borne fungicides and weed management in that one as well as we go by. So you saw several different sugar beet plots. We're only going to talk about a few of them, but several sugar beet plots going on here as well. All right, as we come up here, we'll have a 7 on our right-hand side and an 8 on our left. The 7, again, is another sugar beet study. This is with potatoes, obviously, huh? So on our left is the potato soil-borne disease study, and on our right is our sun hemp and guar. So you can kind of see over there, we've got some different crops that we're probably not used to. We've got some samples of what those seeds look like, but basically the guar is obviously a seed that we're harvested. That's used in the fracking business. It's also used in a couple other industries. The guar is. Sun hemp is basically used as a cropland cover as an option for there. So those are two other things that we're looking at, sun hemp and guar.
Oh, we're passing now. Yes, he has one to tell us about that.
I've got one of those recording mediums. We had 3,400. Most of those were like 5.
Yeah.
Evaporated. Yep.
All right, we went by in this corn study, I should have pointed out as we went through, but that's another interseeding study that we're trying to look at other cover crops that we can interseed into the corn prior to harvest to try and so if you maybe were here a couple of years ago, Jenna Meeks did a research project looking at aerial seeding some cover crops into existing corn stands. That's a continuation of that project where we're aerially seeding some different brassicas, some different turnips, some things into that existing corn stand, trying to improve overall soil fertility, reduce compaction, and make it a little more manageable during the winter months. So that's at number 9. I might also point out as we drive by the sugar beets here, we are going to have another field day. Vivek Sharma is having a field day September 6th, looking at micronutrient application and soil moisture sensors. You can see some of his soil moisture sensors out in that field, and there's going to be another field day here September 6th focusing on sugar beet production.
Sure seems to me the grass is slow getting started.
All right, we're coming up on a number 10 on our right-hand side. That's another management of some stem and root rot diseases in pinto beans with some in-furrow fungicides. So again, this study was done to compare the efficacy of fungicides applied in furrow at planting and the management of these soil-borne diseases, mainly those of Fusarium and Rosicronia. So anyway, that's another study that's going on here. All right, here's number 11. This is another study by Dr. Heidholt and looking at some dry bean applications and management, looking at 18 different genotypes grown with 0 fertilizer of and 60 pounds of nitrogen per acre. So again, looking at some different soil fertility practices on dry bean production. Number 12 is probably one of my favorite pet projects. We plant a field of potatoes. And this has started about 7 or 8 years ago for me, but it started with a group of Wheatland kids coming over for a field day, and we decided, wouldn't it be a lot of fun to let all of the kids come out and dig potatoes? And that's mushroomed on us to where we get schools from all over the area bring 3rd and 4th graders out here. We give them a tour of the facility. We talk about the importance of science and the importance of agriculture. And then at the end of the tour, they get shovels and they get to go out and dig a sack of potatoes. And I tell you what, it's one of the more rewarding things. It's kind of like Easter egg hunt and pumpkin patch all at once. It's a pretty enjoyable thing to see those kids, a lot of them that don't realize where potatoes come from, to go out and dig potatoes. About the only person that doesn't like it is the bus driver that takes home about 600 pounds of potatoes and roll around on the floor. But again, a pretty enjoyable deal where we get a lot of 3rd and 4th grade kids from all over the area to come out and do a tour.
I started calling that this week. I think Johnny might adopt it. Here's your top. Yeah, that'd be a good one. It's harvest time.
All right, so we'll be coming up. You can see another plot or series of plots of Dr. Anwar's forage sorghum. Again, this is another plot up here coming up on your left. Again, part of that variety study looking at forage sorghum and a variety study looking at total tonnage as well as forage quality on that project. So you can see we've got, this is a good example of the variable irrigation that we're able to apply with our pivot. We can really control the amount of moisture that's applied to those different plots, so we can impact that pretty dramatically.
Those need even more. Still.
Yeah, they need a little more, don't you think?
All right, one of our last plots that we're going to talk about is coming up here on our left. Again, this is another forage sorghum study, and this is one that I've been involved with. I've had a lot of questions from many producers wanting to compare or contrast planting silage corn versus forage sorghum in an irrigated scenario. So what we've got here is some silage corn compared to different forage sorghum varieties. The forage sorghum is both planted in 30-inch rows as well as planted with a drill. The other big reason we're interested in forage sorghum is that typically it requires less water, so we've got 2 irrigation rates in this forage sorghum study, as well as 2 different fertilizer rates. So we're going to compare forage sorghum versus traditional corn silage. We're going to measure overall tonnage. We're going to measure overall nutrient value of those forages. And that was really a question that was directly driven off of producers coming in just because of the price of seed corn, the price of fertilizer, and often the challenges with getting water applied. We're doing that comparison. So that's this number 15. We've got both corn and forage sorghum growing in these plots, and we'll harvest those as silage later on this summer. So you can obviously see the shorter here, we've got 2 different irrigation blocks, so obviously water has been pretty important to forage production off of these plots this year as well. All right, that's about the end of our tour here. I'll just mention, walk down to the Cheatgrass Challenge area and check out those plots. We also have some research going on in the high tunnel where we're comparing pepper production, bell pepper production, both with shaded and unshaded plots in the high tunnel, so that's another area you can go take a look at. Again, many of these researchers are here today, many of them manning their posters in the shop, so if you have any specific questions, check out the posters in the mechanics shop, talk to those researchers, and we'd be happy to try and answer any questions that you might have.